Welcome back. Another episode of the Whole Nine Yards here on what's today? Saturday, day after Christmas.
Saturday, yeah.
So I hope everyone had a great Christmas who's watching right now. Christmas Day games were pretty underwhelming, but we'll start with NBA on the episode. So Brandon.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the Warriors. They played in the first game of the season against the Nets. They lost by 26. Wasn't really ever that close. I actually liked what I saw from James Wiseman. But just speaking of their team in general, I mean, I picked them to be the 7 seed. You picked them to be in the playing tournament, right?
I think I had them as my 5.
Is your 5? Okay, so even better. So I mean, it's only been 2 games. Then they played the Bucks on Christmas, and they got blown out again. So it's not been a great 2 games at all. It's really more so. Uh, I think Steph is going to be fine. I think it's more the role players, which so far they've been terrible in Oubre and Wiggins. And Draymond hasn't played yet. Not like offensively he's going to give that much, but I think I read something that said like outside of dunks and layups, Oubre and Wiggins were like 1 of 25 or something like that from the field, and they were like 2 of 15 from three or something like that. It was something crazy like that. I guess maybe the other way around, but they've been terrible shooting the ball, so I think they'll be better. Like they'll be fine, and once they get better, they'll win games. Maybe I think the 5 seed again. It's only been 2 games, but I think at least for your prediction, 5 seed. I think it's too high. Even 7 seed maybe too high. I mean, we'll have to see how like the Pelicans are. Maybe the Grizzlies, the Blazers, at least in my prediction, and a couple other teams from the bottom of the West, like the Suns, how much better they are than what we've seen or what we think they can be. But it seems like the Warriors probably will be in the 8, 9, 10, most likely, and probably the 9, 10. Because I don't think Steph can lead this team by himself. We've never seen it before, just him. And again, I like Wiggins and Oubre, and Wiseman's been pretty good, and I think he's actually going to be really good for them. But without Clay, I think we're seeing how much of a difference he was making offensively and defensively, more so offensively, because Steph's not getting double teamed the entire time, knowing that you have Clay who can give you 30 a night if he needs to. So I think that makes a big difference. But I still think it'll be fine, but I would say more towards the 9, 10 seed than probably the 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can immediately say from these 2 games, at least for me, that Wiseman might already be the second best player on this team. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be – so this is Curry's, like, first actual year, just him. If he is a top 5, maybe even higher player in your mind or in anybody's mind, like, he'd have to at least make the playoffs for me to, still have that opinion, at least, like, right now, if he's a top 5 player. Maybe 5 is still too high. It might be. I'm not exactly too sure, but I don't think Wiggins and Oubre will continue to shoot this poorly. Wiggins is averaging like 12 points a game, right? I mean, I think he'll probably be up in the 17, 18, maybe even 20 range. Like, that's just not going to continue to happen. Oubre's not going to play this poorly either. Draymond probably won't add too much on the offensive side, but he's still a solid defensive player. And I mean, locker room wise, he might be, when he comes back, he just might be like the person that this team needs to get them back into shape. At least I know somebody like Wiggins and potentially Oubre might need somebody like Draymond. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I'm not gonna sell my Warrior 5 seed stock yet. I don't think they end up in the 9 or 10 range. I still think they're a top 8 team in the West. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to like overreact, but they don't have much of a bench, and like obviously they're going to shoot better, especially Wiggins and Oubre, but without that bench and you're relying on Curry probably giving you 27 a night, I would say, and he has to play great every single night unless someone else is going to give you 30, which seems unlikely. It's going to be hard for them to win games against the top teams in the West. Now you could feed off the teams at the bottom of the West and the East, but it's definitely going to be tough for them to beat teams with over a 500 record. If Curry's not going to play great every single game, and that means he also has to play every single game. The last 3 seasons, he's missed time at some point. I think, I mean, last year obviously he missed basically the entire year, but even the 2 years prior, he missed time during those seasons. So he has to stay healthy the entire year, and he has to play great every single game, which I think is asking for a lot from a guy who's, he's still in his prime, but he's definitely getting closer to the end than he is towards the middle of his prime. So it's definitely going to be a lot, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Again, it's only been 2 games, so you can't say much, but they definitely need to play better.
Moving on from the Warriors, I do want to touch quickly on the Mavs. Right now they're 0-2. I predicted them as, I want to say, my 4 seed in the West, and they haven't played like that so far. Their first game of the year, they ended up losing in a close game to the Suns, and on Christmas, they basically got blown out by the Lakers. They just don't look like that great of a team right now. Obviously, not having Kristaps is huge, and if this team is going to be the 4 seed, like, I mean, Doncic can't just carry them to the 4 seed by them himself, at least. Offensively, this team doesn't look like the best offense of all time like it was last year. I mean, I'm not saying it was, but I forget what metrics they were the best offense of all time in last year, but that's what people were saying. Josh Richardson, I mean, I want to say he's still an upgrade over Seth Curry. There's no reason for me to believe that's not true. I'm not exactly sure, how to react off these first 2 games. They don't look anywhere close to the Lakers right now. I mean, that's for sure. The Lakers just, even though they lost to the Clippers, I still think that they've so far looked like the best team in the league. And I mean, so they were down 22 points in the first quarter to the Clippers, and they ended up making that game somewhat close. They went on Christmas by 23 or something against the Mavericks. I mean, to me, they're still the best team in the league, and it's not close. I'm not sure how you're feeling about the Mavs after the first 2 games, but I mean, you had them pretty high too, I want to say. So
I had them in the 4 seed also. So I think they're definitely a better team at what they're playing right now. I think Porzingis, again, it's a question to when he's going to come back too. It's kind of like the Celtics situation with Kemba. It's not really sure when he's going to come back. It seems like he's going to come back in January, but it's not, totally. It's not totally expected that he is going to come back then. So he's definitely, I mean, that's 18, 20 points a game with pretty good defense that you're missing out on. I think it shows that Dwight Powell, he missed most of last season, if not all of last season with the torn Achilles. He's definitely not the same player he was before. If you were watching him, he was definitely a much better player. And defensively, I mean, he couldn't stop AD last night on Christmas. It was a pretty easy game for him when Dwight Powell was guarding him. But I think Luka, he's trying to do too much. I mean, you could tell. I think when Porzingis comes back, it will be easier because it won't be too much on Luka on the offense. And then you'll have the shooters around him like Richardson, Hardaway, Tyrell Terry, off the bench and everything. It'll be much better when Porzingis comes back because it'll just take some of the load off. But until then, I mean, yeah, they're definitely gonna struggle a bit. I mean, even the Suns game, they were struggling most of the game, but they still had a chance to win the game when it came down to the final minutes. So the Laker game, I mean, they're probably gonna lose that game. The Lakers are definitely one of the best teams in the league. Probably the best team in the league. Looking at all the teams, but I wouldn't worry too much. I think it's different from the Warriors situation because I think the Mavericks are just a better team than the Warriors are, but I wouldn't worry too much about it so far.
yeah, I don't think their roster is as bad as the Warriors. I think they have better surrounding pieces than like Marquise Chris. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on when Porzingis comes back. But if they fall in a hole in the first, let's say, 15 games of the year, and they start, I don't know, maybe they start 7-8, like that 4 seed is like almost gone at that point, right? So in a 72 game season, it's not like if they start 7-8, it's going to be they'll have to play like a 2 seed if they start 7-8 to get that 4 seed. So I mean,
I
again, it
mean,
depends on when Porzingis comes back, but
I wouldn't say it's gone at that point. It'd definitely be tougher to get, but I think even if they start off slow, I think when Porzingis comes back, or even before he comes back, I think Luke is. I mean, I picked him to be MVP. Did you pick him to be MVP or no?
I did.
So okay, so we both have an MVP. So he'll be fine. I mean, he's just to shoot better. I mean, from three, I said he has to shoot at least like 33, 34% from three. He's like a career 31, 30% three-point shooter, which I don't think people really realize. But he's been okay from three so far this year. Again, it's only been 2 games, but if he can be better from three and be more efficient, he'll be fine. I'm not really worried about Luka in a sense. But again, for their team, they'll be fine. Even if they start off slow, I think maybe the 4 seed's out of range, but the 5, 6 seed, I think if they can't get the 4 seed, they'll be in the 5 or 6 seed. So I don't think it'll matter that much.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so looking at the draft, we talked about Wiseman. He's played pretty well these first couple games. Somebody that definitely hasn't played super well is LaMelo Ball. He went scoreless in his debut. He didn't start, but he finished scoreless in, I think he played 16 minutes
Yeah,
against the Cavs.
yeah.
Um, I mean, if he's going to shoot, let me pull up his shooting percentages. I think it was like 20. He's shooting like 20% from the field, 27%.
Well, he's really not a great shooter. I mean, he shot I
But
think like
internationally, his percentages weren't horrible. I mean, they weren't bad.
well from three he was only shooting like 28%. He's not a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
the
mean,
problem is he takes two. I think he took 8 threes per game, and if it's a 28% shooter, was he making like was it 2 threes a game? Um, Maybe like 2.2, something like that. So I think he needs to probably cut down on the threes if he's going to be playing. Obviously, he's going to be playing more than 16 minutes. When we get a couple weeks into the season, but it, he's just not. He's not a great shooter, so it's not going to help a lot.
I mean, so Lonzo, when he was drafted, he was probably just as poor of a like pure scorer, I guess, like shooting. Lonzo last year though, he shot very effectively from 3-point range, even though the form was a very big thing coming out of the draft. It's the same thing for LaMelo. I mean, LaMelo is going to have to develop a shot, or else he's just going to end up being. He's going to be like one of these point guards, like I don't know, like a Alfred Payton or a Ricky Rubio, or like I don't know, all these backup ish point guards that like can't shoot but can kind of pass. Uh, and I really hope that's not the case. I
The only
was
difference is that at least he has the confidence to shoot the ball. At least like Lonzo doesn't. He doesn't like look to score. At least Lamelo looks to
yeah
score. Like I'll give him that. I mean, he's probably a probably the same or even a better passer than Lonzo is, but at least he looks to score. So I think he'll improve it shooting wise. But
yeah. I mean, he has to be able to score the ball though effectively if that's going to be a good attribute. Um, so yeah.
it's gonna be
Um,
tough for him to be to play on that team at least for the first half of the season.
I would assume they're going to trade either
Yeah.
Devonte Graham or Rozier. I would assume so. I mean, can you even trade Rozier? I don't know.
With his contract, it could be tough. And maybe someone would want to trade for it, but I mean, I'd rather trade Rozier than Graham. But I don't know. They're definitely going to trade one of them because he's not
Yeah.
going to be on the bench the entire season. Obviously, you can't play all three, so I would be surprised if they didn't trade one of them. But at the minimum, he's going to be starting most likely, and he's definitely going to be playing like 30 minutes a game when the end of the season starts coming. So
Yeah, if I'm the Hornets, I would look to trade Rozier. Maybe you have to wait until a contending team gets an injury from their backup point guard or something. Maybe Schroeder goes down with a torn. I don't know, like something where maybe some team is like, all right, I'll trade for Rozier and bite the bullet because I want to win this year. I'm not exactly too sure. If you have to trade Graham, I mean, I feel like you have to. Unless you want to play one of them off the bench. I mean, I just don't think LaMelo can play the bench, and we both know he can't be on the bench the full year. I was taking a look at, and this is pretty common knowledge, like all of Michael Jordan's picks as a part of the Hornets, and I don't think it gets any worse. His basically only good pick he's ever had is Kemba Walker, and even then, I think he in that draft picking Kemba, he still passed up on multiple players that are better than Kemba. It doesn't really mean much for this specific pick, but if LaMelo does turn out to be a bust, then I mean, I don't know exactly what I'd take away from it that I don't already, think of Michael Jordan's history as a part of the Hornets. But I mean, this organization has been horrible drafting, and they better hope that LaMelo plays well soon, because if he doesn't, this team's going to be right back where it was before the draft, which is, I mean, a perennial top 5 worst team in the league that has to spend big money on free agents like Gordon Hayward, which are ultimately going to get them nowhere. So,
Yeah, I mean, we both had him for Rookie of the Year, so I mean, I don't think either of us see anything that's going to change that so far. It's only been one game, so.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I know. That's true, but
yeah, I mean, him not scoring. I mean, again, he only played 16 minutes, which, I mean, even though Graham only had 10, I think he had 10 points, but he had 10 assists, and then Rozier had 42 points. So he wasn't going to get in that game anyways. And they were getting blown out basically that entire game also. But he'll start playing more and more. And even if his efficiency isn't great, like if he's shooting maybe like 40% from the field and like 28%, 29% from three, if he puts up pretty big numbers and he has a lot of highlights, he'll probably be Rookie of the Year. That's basically what wins you Rookie of the Year, if you get a lot of highlights. I mean, like, to be honest, unless you're just like amazing. But
well, it depends. I mean, so he's going to have to play 30 minutes a game somewhat soon. Like if he goes the first half of the year not starting, that's bad for his Rookie of the Year cause.
I mean, he may not be starting, but he'll be playing more and more. He won't be playing like 16, 20 minutes a game. I mean, I'd be surprised if he does, unless he just really doesn't show anything that proves that he can actually be on the floor at times. It'd be interesting to see if he's going to be on the floor in like 5-minute situations at the end of games, because his defense isn't great. But he does have the size, and he has some athleticism. So it'd be interesting to see, because Graham, Rozier, and Ball, none of them are good defenders. Maybe Graham's the best one, like when he tries, but it'd be interesting to see who's on the floor at the end of games, because if LaMelo can be on the floor at the end of games, then he's definitely going to be playing more and more. So I think that would be pretty big for him too.
I mean, you don't have to assume LaMelo will be on the floor at the end of games. Like it depends on how his defense is, obviously. I'm going to have faith that over the course of his career, he gets better on the defensive side. He has to. And it seems like he has too much like physical talent for that not to be the case, unless he just decides, like I'm just not going to play defense. But I mean, looking at his offensive game, at least right now, it's not good enough to the point where he's going to be, intentionally not trying on defense. So he has that energy for the offensive side. I'll move on from LaMelo though. I want to talk about the Celtics real quickly. So in the opener, they played the Bucks, and Tatum hit the game winner with like 0.4 seconds left or whatever. They ended up beating the Bucks. On Christmas, though, they ended up losing to the Nets, and it was not a great game by any means. It definitely added to the Christmas games just not being very good this year at all. There wasn't really any entertaining ones. My takeaway is really, I'd like to see Walker back. I really think we need Walker. I mean, switching off the Celtics for just a second here, I might already be wrong about the Nets. I think I had them as like the 5 seed or something like that. Durant, I mean, he might already be the second best player in the league again after the first 2 games coming off a torn Achilles. I mean, that's if you're a Bucks fan, Celtics fan, Sixers fan, you're already starting to worry watching this Nets team. Kyrie is also looking like, and I mean, he didn't really have any big injuries, but he's already starting to look like a top 20 player, and top 15, maybe top 10, like in that Damian Lillard range again, where he was before, maybe back in like 2016, 2017. If that's the case, this team is very, very, very scary. It's something I didn't think would happen. And it's only been 2 games for the Nets so far, but I mean, if Durant's the second best player and Irving can play like somewhere in that 10 to 15 range, this roster, other than them two, is also just very good. Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, Dinwiddie. It's very scary. DeAndre Jordan, I mean, this doesn't really mean anything, but he's just not good. I mean, Jared Allen's better, at least in my opinion. So, I mean, that doesn't mean anything really because they still have Durant, all these players. But, I mean, yeah, this Nets team looks insane. And the Celtics, I had them as the 3 seed, I want to say. They looked very good against the Bucks. I wasn't exactly sure. I mean, it didn't really mean anything. It's one game. Giannis had his in that game. He went for like 35, 13 rebounds. This is where I'm gonna look for Tatum to take another leap off of what he did last year. With no Kemba, he's basically been given the keys to the franchise for at least potentially the first half of the season. Who knows, maybe even more than that. He didn't look good against Brooklyn. He only had like 20 points, and I mean, it's still 20 points, but he definitely looked much better against the Bucks. Jaylen Brown has looked pretty solid. But looking at the back half of this roster, you still don't have that much depth. I mean, last year you definitely didn't have a lot of depth. This year, I mean, you replaced Wanamaker with like Teague, you brought in Thompson, but you lose Hayward. So losing Hayward and losing Walker, like at least right now, I mean, that's what, 35 to 40 points a game that you just don't have from last year. So, we'll see how this team does. I still think they're going to be around that 3 seed. Maybe they're the 5 seed. Maybe they're the 4 seed. I mean, who knows? But I still think they're going to be in that mix. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think losing Hayward was actually a lot bigger than probably Celtics fans realized because he was arguably your 4th, probably your 5th best player on the team last year, having Tatum, Brown, Walker, and probably even Marcus Smart above him. So I think people didn't really realize the impact that he had. Like, he wasn't great with them, but that was a consistent 15 points a night. And a good passer. He's actually pretty underrated as a passer and a decent defender, but someone who you could trust the ball with in late game situations. And obviously having Kemba this year being injured, though they're a different team when he's healthy, but we talked about this when we made our predictions. I don't know if he's even going to be healthy when he comes back. It's a question of when he's actually going to come back, and when he does, is he actually going to be healthy? So that's going to be something to see. That's kind of why, even though I picked him for my 4 seed, I just thought, even though I'm not a Tatum guy, which he really hasn't looked great these first 2 games. I mean, you could say like the points or whatever, but his efficiency hasn't been great. I mean, that shot against the Bucks, I mean, they really shouldn't have gone in. It was a terrible shot, but.
Well, I mean, yeah. I guess.
You can't say that was it was a step back, fade away out of bounds that he banked in over Giannis. I mean, it's not. I mean, who would have? When I was watching that game, I wouldn't have thought that would have gone in, but whatever, it went in. So. He hasn't been great so far, but again, it's only been 2 games. But I mean, they were your finals pick, which I thought was ridiculous at the time, and it's looking again. It's only been 2 games, but you can see their depth is a problem. Even when Kemba comes back and the rotation moves back 1 spot, it's still going to be a problem. You're going to need Tatum or Brown to play great almost like every night. Brown's been really good. I think he's actually he's actually improved from last year when he was playing in the playoffs. I thought he was really good in the bubble, and he's actually playing better now. But they're going to play great almost every single game in order for the Celtics to be a contender in the East, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Brown and Tatum are going to have to both be all-stars this year. I mean, Tatum will have to be like a second all-team NBA for them to make the finals probably. I still think it's very much possible. I think the depth can be an issue, and it's more of an issue in the regular season than it is the postseason, which is why it might not matter as much in the postseason, especially if Kemba's back and healthy, which by then he should be. I mean, he'll be back. I mean, is he going to be 100%? I'd assume so. Uh, I'm actually looking at Marcus Smart. You said he was. I mean, he is the fourth. Last year, at least, he was the fourth best player on that team. I thought he was better than Hayward. I mean, the grit he brings and the energy he brings is it's similar to like a Draymond Green in his prime. I don't know that Smart was the same player that Draymond was, but that energy that he brought to the team feels very similar. I'm thinking Marcus Smart might get traded this season. Just basing it off last season, there was a lot of disconnect between Brown, Tatum, and Smart. I think Smart just the only problem with Smart is I think he thinks he's better than he really is. He's probably like if this was 2K, like if I'm giving him like a rating, like he's probably, at best like 85, but he's probably not even that. I mean, it just comes down to like his effort being like the best attribute about him. I don't know if that's going to mix well with Tatum and Brown, especially as the year goes on. Because for this team to unlock its full potential, Tatum and Brown have to be at their best, and especially Tatum, he's going to be taking a lot of shots, and I don't want Smart leeching shots away from them, especially when Walker gets back last year at least, and we did have Hayward last year, but Smart just takes too many threes, and he takes so many bad shots that sometimes it just gets to a point where, when his effort and his like grit isn't super impactful in the game, you're just like, he's not even like a positive asset to the team right now.
Well, I think that's one thing that Kemba being out really shows is that Smart thinks he could be the third guy on that team when he's just not.
He's just
so,
not.
So Kemba being out there it's worse. It's worse because he's out, but it's also worse because Smart thinks he has to take more shots.
And he definitely doesn't. Smart has this weird thing where sometimes his shots just like go in when they shouldn't. But for the most part, like he's just not a good shooter really. From 3-point land, he'll just take some really bad shots. And sometimes, especially in the fourth quarter, they just have the tendency to go in, which I mean is cool, but a lot of the times they just don't. If I don't know, I mean, I'm not an insider, but from what I've heard, like if the relationship between Brown, Tatum, and Smart gets worse, it might just get to a point where you have to trade Smart. And I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you get back. If it does get to a point where popular belief is like Smart has to go, then you probably honestly don't get too much. I'm not sure exactly what a team would be willing to give up for Smart at this point. I would assume something valuable, but I mean, I'm not exactly sure what that would be. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. I think Smart actually could get traded this year, and I don't know if that'd be a positive or negative for the team. It'd probably be a negative depending on who you get back, I guess. But I mean, yeah, also, yeah, I mean, on top of that, Smart in the first couple games, I mean, he's not a top 4 player on a team. Like, even, like if this, I don't know, maybe he's the 4th on the Celtics team if they get to the finals, but even then, if they get to the finals, I didn't predict they're going to win. They wouldn't win. So like Smart at best on a championship winning team is probably the 5th best player. He's probably like a 6th man, to be honest, on like a true championship winning team. But yeah.
All right. That's probably enough Celtics talk. I just want to say one quick thing about the Nets. I had them winning the finals for my predictions, and so far, I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier, but Durant has looked like Durant from 2018, the last time we saw him play. Kyrie's looked a lot better than I thought he would look so far, and I think that you can see that their depth is real. I mean, their first line and their second line. I mean, their second line of players could be a starting lineup for most teams if you look at it. And I think they should probably be starting Allen over Jordan. I think that's more of Durant and Irving saying that he's starting because that's the only reason that Jordan's on the Nets because of Durant and Irving. But I think going forward, at least for the playoffs, like when you get to that time of year, I think Allen should be the one starting because he's definitely the better player. He should at least be closing games when it comes to those situations. But I guess for right now, it's fine for Jordan to start, but Allen should definitely be starting down the line. I was actually kind of surprised to see that Dinwiddie was starting for them. Obviously, he's usually more of like an off the bench scorer guy, and that Levert was coming off the bench. But I actually kind of like that better looking at it through these first two games because Levert is a starting caliber player, and he's probably like a fringe all star. I mean, the East definitely, in the West, most likely not, just because there's way too many more players out there. But him coming off the bench and playing against second units of teams, that's only going to be better because you can trust him to run your offense for 3-4 minutes at a time when Durant and Irving aren't on the court. So I think just having him coming off the bench is, I mean, that he's probably one of the best bench players in the league if he's going to stay off the bench for the entire year. So it only makes their team better. And as you could see for the first two games, they blew the Warriors out, they blew the Celtics out. I still haven't been the 2 seed only because Durant and Irving aren't going to play every single game, but they're, I think, clearly the favorite in the East so far.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely played like the favorite. By the way, that I don't know that their second, like their backups would be a starting team on most teams. I mean, who's their what's their like what's their 6 through 10 like Shamet, Levert,
I mean, not
Prince,
like
Green, and Allen. I mean, I guess Jordan. If you not right now, but if you wanted to say Allen was better than Jordan, then Jordan would be that. I mean, I don't know. That's.
I mean, their second team could be. I mean, those are the guys who are coming off the bench for them. I mean, you have Jeff Green, Torian Prince, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Landry Shamet. I mean, that's a pretty good five off the bench, and that.
Well, off the bench, maybe,
But if for some, I'm not trying. I wasn't saying for most teams. I was saying like, there's that five is better than other teams starting fives.
I don't know which starting five that would be, but potential. I mean, maybe like. I mean, whatever. It's regard. I mean, it's pointless. But I mean, maybe maybe it's better than the Bulls starting five, maybe. But I mean, or like the Hornets without Hayward. But yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, I mean, this team Dinwiddie starting. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense at least off the first two games. And yeah, I mean, it really comes down to Durant and Irving. I don't think this team gets the 1 seed. I definitely still think it's the Bucks that get the 1 seed. I mean, Giannis is just. He's probably going to play all 72 games or something close to it. He's a dominant player in the regular season. He's unstoppable. He never takes a playoff, and a lot of the times, players like Durant and Irving have the tendency to take plays off or take games off, which is perfectly fine. But Giannis doesn't really do that. He's kind of like Westbrook in that way. He just full head of steam the whole season. I mean, I think they get the 1 seed, but I mean, yeah, this Nets team could definitely get the 2 seed at least. Looking at it right now, I mean, yeah, if it really just comes down to if Durant can play like he was in his prime, and if he's still in his prime, and if Irving's going to play like 2016 Irving next to LeBron, then this team is very scary and could definitely make it to the finals.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, that's what I said
Yeah.
in our predictions. But moving off NBA, giving a quick recap of the Monday night game for football. It was Steelers-Bengals. I picked the Steelers. I forget what the line was. I think it was 13.5. I think it was. Obviously, the Steelers were the favorite. I thought that they'd blow the Bengals out. I think most people, at least watching Monday night countdown before the game, I think everyone on that panel picked the Steelers to blow the Bengals out. They're coming off the 2 losses against Washington and Buffalo. They played terrible. Everyone was talking about them and how bad they were. I thought they'd come out. Their offense has been terrible. I thought they'd just put up like 30, 40 points. It would be over with. They'd prove to people, at least some people, that they're a real playoff team in the AFC. Instead, I mean, their first, I think it was their first like 6 or 7 possessions it was. They rather punt it or turn the ball over. And all those, I think they got their first down rather at the end of the first quarter, and maybe even in the second quarter. I mean, they played terrible. They came back a little bit in the second half, but at that point, there was really no point. I mean, they couldn't really take the lead at that point. The Bengals had built up a 17-0 lead. And yeah, it was probably, I wouldn't even say it's obviously an upset because of the spread, but I mean, just if you were look at the two teams and how they were playing, at least the Steelers side, like I can't even really say it was that much of an upset because the Steelers have been playing so bad. And again, they proved just how bad and how fraudulent that they've been this year.
When we were talking about our predictions for the AFC standings, we both had the Steelers as our 2, and I think we both said, the Bills probably aren't catching up to the 2 seed unless the Steelers have some like astronomical meltdown. And I don't even know if I would call it that, but I would say that the Steelers are definitely having a meltdown at least. I mean, the injuries have added up. The lack of a running game is still very evident. Wide receivers are still.
They actually got a running game Monday night, and they still couldn't do anything. So,
And this team is just not good. Like, they're going to make the playoffs at 11-3 right now. They're probably going to end up finishing 12-4. I mean, I don't know.
maybe.
Around maybe 11-5. Maybe they lose. Maybe they finish losing. I mean, if they ended the season losing 5 in a row, that would be.
I mean, they play the Colts and the Browns. I mean, that Browns game could easily be for the division.
It could be. If they finish they could. Yeah, if they finish the season 11-5, they probably. I mean, who knows what happens? But that would be super interesting. I don't know if we've ever seen a team go 11-0 and lose the last 5 games of the regular season.
Do you think? I have a question. Do you think if they were to lose their last 2 games and then lose in the first round, do you think Tomlin would be fired?
No, I don't think so. Because I think you could easily attribute the second half like demise of this team to injuries, and I mean that's not within Tomlin's control. Tomlin still did get this team to 11-0, and if they finish 11-5, that's still better than I think what maybe anybody in the country really thought what the Steelers were going to be outside of Pittsburgh. I didn't think they were going to be 11-5. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd be fired either. But it would definitely be people would definitely be talking about it if that were to happen, which it's definitely possible. I mean, playing the Colts, where it's definitely a better team, and the Browns are definitely they're playing 2 better teams these next 2 weeks. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost both games and lost in the first round. I don't think he'd be fired. I think it's more so Ben. I think he this is probably his last. I mean, is it his last year? I don't know, but I think it probably is his last year.
like in the NFL or on the Steelers?
I would say in the NFL. I'd say he wouldn't be able to start anywhere else. I'd be surprised. I think you could see now that his arm really isn't there anymore. He cannot throw the deep ball, and his body's giving up on him. So
Yeah, I mean I would have him. I would take him over Cam, but I mean I don't think it's like what did you take? I mean yeah, but
I mean, like maybe a team would take him, but to actually start him for a season, like you'd almost have to bench him like for 4 games in the middle of the season so that he's like fresh. Like I don't think he can go
yeah,
through a 16-game season anymore.
potentially not. Yeah, it would be very interesting if the Steelers finish 11-5, and if they get blown out by, if they get blown up by like the Bills in the first round or something, like that would just be like such a crazy end to the season for the Steelers. It almost end up like putting you in like a full rebuild mode.
Yeah, I mean they could at that point you'd probably look to like trade for like Darnold or something like that. Well, I guess we'll have to see what happens with the Jets
Yeah,
now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took on like a young quarterback or draft a quarterback.
Wentz, no.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I would agree, probably
I
not.
think
But
you need like a team that's ready to win.
yeah, I think a Darnold makes sense. It depends on assuming they get the second pick. It depends on what they want to do with Fields. Like, I mean, they could just take Fields, or I wouldn't, but I definitely wouldn't take Fields. But
I would just keep Darnold at that point. But I would just trade down, get way more picks. But
I would probably end up trading down as well. You just have too many holes in that roster. But yeah, I mean, the Steelers. I've never been a Tomlin fan, so even though I do say he wouldn't get fired, I thought he should have been fired potentially multiple years ago. And I'm not saying I was right on that. I'm definitely not saying that at all. But I still don't think he's a top 5 coach in the league. I think like I've said, he has a tendency to have his teams play down the competition. He definitely did it against the Bengals this week, even if you want to say that it wasn't that big of an upset, which might be true, might not be true. Throughout his career as a Steelers head coach, this team continues to play down to their competition, and a lot of the times they might have the more talented roster, and they probably end up losing to the less talented team. Um, that divisional game against the Jaguars that they lost, I mean, that was not a good look, obviously, to lose to the Jaguars. And obviously, I mean, that team almost made it to the Super Bowl. They had a lead in the fourth quarter, but I mean, still, that game wasn't close. It just wasn't a good look. I've never been a big Tomlin fan, but yeah.
Yeah. And just one thing, when we were talking about them being the 2 seed, that was when they were 11-0. They were playing Washington, Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Colts, and the Browns. I think most people saw at least 2 wins in being Washington and the Bengals. So at worst, I think they would have been 13-3, and maybe they would have won a game, maybe the Bills game, Colts game, Browns game, who knows? But um, I don't think anyone saw when they were 11-0 that they'd potentially be 11-5. I think at least 13-3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big collapse for sure. Yeah. And I mean, maybe the Browns do win this division. It's definitely not out of the question at this point. It probably was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago for sure.
I think
But
it's probably more of a possibility that they win the division.
I
The
mean, at
Browns,
this point, would you predict them to win the division or?
I think I think I would honestly. I mean, the Browns play the Jets this week. It's most likely going to be a win. Obviously, it depends on if the Steelers win this week. I mean, I probably see them losing. They play the Colts, who have been really good. Obviously, I've been way higher on them than you have. Obviously, you're calling more for the Titans. I'm for the Colts, but I think the Steelers probably lose that game, and then they're in Cleveland week 17 for the division. I mean, at that point, I don't know how you wouldn't pick the Browns to win that game.
To me, yeah, I mean, I see the Colts beating the Steelers tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not sold on this Cleveland team. Maybe I should be. I don't know, but if that game does end up being for the division, I don't know if I would pick Cleveland or not. I'd have to think about it. I might. I would probably right now. I lean Cleveland, but I still don't know if I pick Cleveland in that game. I mean, look at the standings, and other than that Ravens game, and I know that Ravens game is the most recent game that they've played in the division, but other than that Ravens game, still in division matchups, they've still gotten their butts handed to them. And I don't want to go all the way back to September and October, but even just historically with Baker Mayfield on this team, and historically the Browns as a franchise, just I still can't get over that. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we're gonna do our predictions next, but one thing just before that, the Bucks are playing the Lions right now. It's halftime, and the Bucks are up 34-0, and Brady has he's 22 for 27 for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just thought I should say that before.
I mean, I don't really have any takeaways. I mean, I haven't seen. I only watched the first I want to say I saw the Bucks go 3-0 to start the game. I want to say, and then I think that's all I watched.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been watching the last couple touchdowns, but it's not more so like takeaways. I guess it's more just I guess kind of what I was saying earlier is that they're going to find their offensive groove. And I mean, I know they're playing the Lions, but to put up 34 points at halftime is pretty impressive.
No, that is pretty crazy. That is definitely pretty crazy. Although, I mean, it is,
it's the Lions.
It's the head coachless Lions right now. So
and they're missing a lot of coaches on their team, but still, I think them having this type of game in week 16, and then they play Atlanta next week at home. I think they're going to be ready for the playoffs, which, again, that's why I've been saying they're going to be in the NFC Championship. So,
I mean, I might have them in the Super Bowl. Who knows? So that might be just one of those homer picking the Celtics to be in the finals picks. But I mean, I guess it's not a homer pick because I'm not a Tampa Bay fan necessarily. But
I mean Brady. So
yeah, that is pretty crazy though. 34.5, but.
Yeah, 34.5 is pretty crazy. And then yesterday's game. So there was a game on Christmas yesterday for football. It was the Saints versus who the Saints play? They played the Vikings. The Saints versus the Vikings. Alvin Kamara scored 6 touchdowns. Probably should have been 7. I don't know if were you watching it when?
Nope.
they were at the 1 yard line, and well, they were like the 10 yard line. Alvin Kamara ran for 5 yards. It was 2nd and 5. They took him out. They threw a pass the 1 yard line. It was 3rd and 1. They called a timeout, and they still had him on the sidelines. Then Taysom Hill scored. So that would have been for the 6th touchdown, and then they got the ball back and then scored again. That's where he got a 6th touchdown, but it really should have been 7. It's not like a big deal or anything, but he definitely should have had 7 touchdowns. But I mean, does that game prove anything to you about the Saints going, into the playoffs?
Had the Vikings been eligible to make the playoffs, like had they still, because earlier I mean, a while ago,
the
I
Vikings were your
predicted
pick,
the
but
Vikings. I had picked the Vikings to win this game like weeks in advance, but this was before this was when I had the Vikings in the wild card spot, the last wild card spot. Had the Vikings been what, like 8-6 or 7-7, I think it would be a much different story because the Vikings would still be fighting for that last playoff spot. But with the Vikings fully out of the race, I mean, it's just I can't. Sometimes it's hard for me to take any of these games seriously where it's a team that's still competing for the 1 seed or any playoff spot against a team that's fully out of it, and they might as well tank for the draft spot. It's just, and it's not like the Vikings are tanking or anything in the last 2 games, but it's just hard to take anything from a game where it's a team that's still very much in the conversation for the 1 seed against a team that has nothing to play for. So, and I didn't get to watch most of the game. I only watched, I want to say, some of the first quarter. So, I mean, I can't really take too much away from it in that aspect, but in terms of overall, it's just a game like this. It's just hard to take much away from it. So,
I think the game, I didn't have much to take away from it either. I think it just shows that they should, even though he's a big part of the offense. I mean, it's maybe just obvious after he scored 6 touchdowns, but I mean, I had him on fantasy, so I watched him most of the year, and it just seems like they don't give him the ball enough. They use Taysom Hill a ton, which is I don't know why they use him that much. Latavius Murray, they use him a lot too, but I think that's actually good because Kamara is more of like a receiving back and more of like an acceleration burst kind of guy, while Murray's more of a in between the tackles. He can kind of get you those on third downs. He can be your third down back. So I don't think that's the worst thing, but he should obviously be getting the ball more than he does. It seems like Peyton really doesn't. It seems like there's times where he's rather not on the field, or he just like it's a play where like there's no way he's going to be able to get the ball in this play. So I don't know. It's nothing huge, but he should just get the ball more than he already does. I
you're
mean,
talking about Kamara?
yeah,
Yeah. I
he has.
mean,
I mean, he has 21 touchdowns this year, but you know,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
he gets the ball a
I'd have
lot.
to
But if
look
you're,
at,
I mean, if you had him in fantasy, like you watch them all the time, and you would just be like, how's he not on the field, or how's he not involved in this play at all? I don't know. It's something maybe picky, but it's just if Breeze is going to be that limited at quarterback, and Thomas, I mean, he's going to be ready for the playoffs, but how healthy is he going to be? You're going to need to give the ball to him at least 25, 30 times. I would say Kamara. So
yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, that's I mean, against the Vikings. Well, okay, not against Vikings, but in the regular season, I'd have to compare somebody like a Derrick Henry to Alvin Kamara's like usage stats and carries, but it's just not realistic for Kamara to get a bunch of touches and still be just as ready to go for the playoffs as he is potentially right now. Again, I'd have to compare Henry's stats and like let's say like Zeke in his prime stats to like what Kamara is doing right now. But I mean, Kamara has had a longer prime than somebody like Zeke at this point. Now, I think we can probably say that. So,
well, I guess I don't know.
but what I'm saying is like,
He's not the same like rusher that
no,
Zeke
but
is.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is like, as a team, when you're talking about a running back, especially if you plan to have them on your roster long term for potentially their whole career, like you can't give them the ball 50 million times and have them getting hit over and over again because that's just a running back's not going to last that long.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
looking at just for stats, I mean, Henry has 321 carries in one last game, I guess, and Kamara has 187. So he basically doubled his total in carries.
well,
Now in
but okay,
receptions, Kamara is obviously going to have
yeah.
way more, so it's probably a little more even, but it's probably still Henry probably still has him by a good amount.
I mean, yeah, but that kind of proves my point. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah. Um,
I don't know. It's. I mean, I don't know, but sure, maybe Kamara should get the ball more. I don't know.
again, it's nothing that's that big. I just thought that just watching him the entire year, it just seemed like he doesn't get the ball in certain situations. It just seems like he should get the ball more, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal. All right. Um, all right. So getting to our predictions. So do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
I can start here. So my first game, and reminder, this is so what we used to do is we had both pick we do the five biggest games of the week and we predict those against the spread. Right now we're doing we each pick five. I guess our records were just so bad that we have to do this at this point to save our like prediction reputation. But my first game is Panthers at Washington. Washington is a half a point favorite here. I'm going with Washington. I think Washington's. I just think they're the better team. They're the home team. I don't understand this spread at all, but I mean, I just think they're the better team, and they're gonna win their division. So yeah.
Um, well, for that game, I mean, as a Cowboy fan, I need the Panthers to win that game. That's the only way that we have a chance to win the division. But I'm gonna talk about the Cowboys later. But for my first game, I have Bengals at Texans. It's 7. The line is 7 in favor of the Texans, and I'm gonna take the Texans on that. I think the Bengals, that game last week was an outlier. Also being at home definitely, I guess it helped, you could say. But I see the Texans. The Texans are a team that I have way more trust in Watson than anyone on the Bengals offense, even probably their entire team. So I'm gonna put my trust into Watson and that he can put up 25, 30 points against the Bengals. And I don't really see the Bengals, even though the Texans defense is terrible. I'd honestly be surprised if the Bengals get more than like 14 points. It's just one of those games coming off a big game. You usually have a letdown, and especially being a bad team like the Bengals are, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. I just lost my sheets. Let me grab that real quick. For my next game, we talked about this game already briefly. It's Colts at Steelers. Indianapolis is a 1 point favorite on the road here. I'm going to take Indy. We kind of talked about the Steelers. I mean, they were 11-0. Now they're 11-3. We talked about how it's a possibility they go 11-5. I think Indy is just a better team right now. I think they're a healthier team. I think, although I'm not a big Rivers fan, I think Rivers is the better quarterback than Roethlisberger, at least right now. Uh, they have a better offense. They probably have a better defense. I think Indianapolis is just the better team all around. So I'll take Indy. They're also much hotter, obviously. I mean, so.
Yeah. For my next game, I have Falcons at Chiefs. It's the line's 11. Again, in the favor of the Chiefs, but I'm going to take the Falcons. The Chiefs have played in 6 straight one possession games. Now they've won all 6, but they've all been 6 possession games. Their opponents in those games were Saints, Dolphins, Broncos, Bucks, Raiders, Panthers. So probably 3 good teams, and then the other 3 or 4 good teams, and the other 2 or 3 are like decent, not great. The Falcons are a team that could always score points. It's just their defense. And in late game situations, it comes down to Matt Ryan. But I see them being able to at least hang in there, maybe a backdoor cover, if anything. But considering the Chiefs played 6 straight one possession games, and the Falcons are a team that could put offense up, I'd be surprised if the Chiefs blew them out.
I mean, looking at the track record of the Chiefs this season, that definitely is a possibility. It's something scary to bet on just because at any point the Chiefs could just decide to play well and, I mean, blow the Falcons out. If the Chiefs decided to play their hearts out for this game, I have no doubt that that would be the case. So, but yeah,
I know it's always scary picking the Falcons
yeah,
because
that's the scariest team to pick
they're
in
rather
any
hit
situation.
they're rather hit or they're a complete miss. It's never in
Yeah,
between. So,
yeah.
but I'm putting my trust in them. So we'll see.
Next game, Rams at Seahawks, probably the game of the week, at least probably in my opinion. Could potentially be for the division, probably for the division. Seahawks are 1 point favorites. I'm gonna take Seattle here. The Rams have not looked good as of recently. Obviously, that loss to the Jets is just, but and for many, it would just be the epitome of the Rams season. Some pretty inconsistent, and it could just. I mean, looking at Goff, I think I forget who was saying this, but if Goff's comfortable, he does very well, and if he's not, he doesn't do very well. I think the Super Bowl, and again, the Super Bowl was over 2 years ago or something at this point, but the Super Bowl clearly shows that. I mean, throughout the year, Goff had a great year that year, but he was also very comfortable that whole year. Teams didn't really exactly know how to get to Goff at that point, and I think Belichick kind of gave almost a formula uh, involving lots of schemes, involving just disrupting the pocket, lots of schemes, not showing your coverages. I mean that's fairly obvious for any quarterback. You don't want the quarterback to know what defense you're in, but I'm going to take Seattle. I just think they're probably the better team right now, and the Rams. I was actually pretty high on the Rams this year, but yeah, I think the Rams have just played too inconsistent, and I don't trust Goff to win this game. So
For my next game, I'm going Browns at Jets. The line's 9.5 for Cleveland, but I'm gonna go with the Browns. I think it's the similar situation to the Texans Bengals game in that the worst team had a big win the week before, and it's something that they're not gonna be able to match. Obviously, we're not picking who's gonna win, but I think the Browns, they've been playing a lot of close games too, but they're probably like 10 times better than the Jets are. So I don't know. I just see them being able to control the game for most of the time. The Browns defense is definitely a pretty good defense. Even though the Rams is number one defense, I don't know. I kind of going back to what you were saying about the Rams, I've never been high on the Rams, and it showed last week offensively, but also defensively. They really weren't stopping the Jets until like the third quarter, fourth quarter. There's a couple stretches, but I don't know. I just see the Browns being able to control this game and win pretty comfortably. So I'm going to take them 9.5.
Titans at Packers. Tennessee are 3-point underdogs here. I'm going to go with Tennessee. It kind of goes back to my division predictions. The Titans don't necessarily have to win this game to win the division, but if the Colts are going to beat the Steelers, then the Titans do kind of have to win this game to stay on top of the division. At least if this were to be the last week of the year, which it's not, but if it was to be. So I'll pick the Titans to win this game. I'm not too confident in it. I definitely could see the Packers winning this game. The Packers, again, they are 3-point favorites, so I could get lucky, but I'll pick the Titans to win the game outright. I think Henry just has an insane day. Maybe he goes for like 150 yards on, 20 carries or something like that. So yeah, I'll pick the Titans to win that game. It's more of just I'm invested in this take, and I really want it to pay off, so I'll go with the Titans.
For my next game, I have Bears at Jags. It's 7.5 for the Bears, but I'm gonna go with the Jags here. Over the last 3 games, the Bears have actually put up 30 points in each game. They put up 30, 36, and then 33. But I'd be surprised if they can do that for another game, even though it's against the Jags. I don't know. I just don't. We had this conversation, I think, like a week ago about Trubisky. I'd be surprised if he were able to put up 30 points again. So I kind of see this being kind of a low-scoring game. Seems like the Jags always play kind of low-scoring games where maybe their opponent pulls off in the end, but from the majority of the game, it's actually a pretty close game. Not 7.5. I could see him staying in the game for most of it. And I don't know, maybe they get a touchdown at the end to keep it close and get it to under 7.5. So I don't know. I'm gonna go Jags 7.5 there.
You're still picking the Bears to ultimately win the game, right?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bears to win the game, but I think the Jags will keep it close.
The Bears have to obviously win that game. My last prediction is Bills at Patriots. Patriots are 7-point underdogs here at home. Unfortunately, I'm taking Buffalo. The Patriots have just not looked good at all. And obviously their season is over. Newton, failed experiment, without a doubt. He has just been an objective failure this season. I thought this team was going to be a division winner going into the season, especially after that Seattle game. I thought this team was going to be I thought this team was going to contend. I didn't know if they were going to legitimately win anything, but I thought this team would at least, be above 500 for sure. that they'd be like 10-6, 11-5. Ultimately, that's clearly not the case. So I'll take Buffalo to win. I'll take them to win by 10, at least 10 points, something like that.
For my last game, I'm going Eagles at Cowboys. The line's 3 in favor of the Eagles, which I was kind of surprised about, especially with us being the home team in this game. I thought, I don't know. I mean, the Eagles have definitely looked better under Hurts and Wentz. I mean, clearly, but I mean, they did lose last week. I mean, despite what you want to say about the game, they did lose. They did beat the Saints 2 weeks ago, but that was a Taysom Hill offense. It's a complete different team when Breeze is in there. We've won 2 games in a row. Again, it was against the Bengals, but then we played a pretty good 49ers team. In that they're always going to be a tough game no matter what. So I'm kind of surprised at the line. So I'm going to go Cowboys. One, we need the game in order to have a chance to win the division. I mean, we still need Washington to lose, so it doesn't really matter at that point. But we at least have to win the game just to have a chance. So, and also the fact that it's been 2 games that Hurts has played now. Our defense has looked a lot better these last couple games. We've been forcing turnovers, which Hurts definitely has somewhat of a problem with. I think he only has 1 interception, but he's definitely thrown balls that could have been intercepted, and he's fumbled a couple times. So if we can force a couple turnovers, we can definitely be better defensively and offensively. I don't know if Zeke's playing or not. He's questionable. I honestly wouldn't mind if he didn't play, considering how last week went. But I don't know. I think we win the game. It will definitely be a close game. Every one of these games is close that we play against the Eagles, but I don't know. I think we win the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to win the division, they obviously have to win this game. They have to get pretty lucky, but I mean, would you predict them at this point to win the division, or probably not? But
Well, I mean, I'd say, who's even starting for Washington? Is it Haskins? I mean, I know
I didn't think so.
Smith's not starting, is he?
I That's
Is
what
he
I
still
thought
injured?
it was.
Wait, let me check.
At least when I looked earlier.
It says Smith is questionable, so I don't know if he. I think maybe he is.
That was
If
part of
Smith
like I
if Smith is starting, then I mean I'd probably go with Washington to win the division, only because I don't really see him losing to Carolina this week if he's starting. But if he's not, I'd probably go with us. I think Carolina's actually not that bad of a team.
they're definitely not, but I think that Washington's a better team. But I mean,
Well,
especially with
with
Smith
Smith or
starting.
Haskins.
With Haskins, I mean, Haskins is just so bad that they might not be a better team, but with Smith, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I go. Smith. If Smith is
But I
playing,
think I
then
think
yeah.
Smith is. I'm pretty sure Smith is going to start. At least when I was looking at it, that's what it said when I was looking at it, and so
Um, yeah. Again, if he is, then I'd go for the division. I'd probably go Washington. But if not, then we definitely have a chance. But we'd have to win. And if we
yeah,
lose, it doesn't even matter. So
yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I mean, do you have anything to say before we?
no, still
Yeah.
still no baseball news. So still haven't been able to talk about that yet.
Yeah. All right. We will be back tomorrow night, probably. So
Yeah.
with the NFL reactions. So, and I mean, I'm sure we'll probably talk about like the Bucks game too. So, all right.